In this video, I'm going to show you how to get an Audiomoth ready for field deployment. This is an Audiomoth, and it's a very affordable recorder, and it's pretty simple to program. But before we get started, we need to make sure we have a few things. One is we need to check the ports on the Audiomoth. And so there's a micro USB connector here. There's also a place for a small micro SD card. You want to make sure that that's in there. And you want to make sure that you have your AA batteries installed in the Audiomoth correctly. And also that the switch is placed to USB off. There's 3 settings here. There's custom USB off and default. And on this main board, we have the microphone right here, indicated by a microphone icon. And it actually shows you on here where the SD card and the USB ports are. It's important to know that every time you change the batteries or you remove batteries from an Audiomoth, you will need to go through at least some of these steps to reprogram it, in particular to set the clock. So I have my cable, so I'm going to connect it to the Audiomoth. And then I'm going to first check to see if it needs some new firmware. And so I will do that by using the Audiomoth Flash app. And so the Audiomoth Flash app tells you a couple of things. It will, down here, it will say found an Audiomoth with firmware basic 1.11.0. And what it also lists up here are all the firmware versions that have been made. And the most up-to-date one is 1.11.0. So I don't need to flash my Audiomoth. If I had an older version of the firmware, I would download this firmware and I would flash the Audiomoth doing that. And so I'm going through the steps doing that right now. These programs for preparing the Audiomoth for deployment sometimes don't give you a whole lot of feedback on when they're done, but you have this nice bar here. As soon as this is done updating the firmware, we can move on to the next step. We're almost there. Okay. And so the Audiomoth has been successfully updated. Now, the next thing that you need to do is you need to check the time on this Audiomoth. When the batteries were removed, they default back to a date in 1970. Okay, I'm going to get rid of and so it's telling me right now that the Audiomoth, the time on the clock of the Audiomoth is January 1st, 1970, right at midnight, and that's not the case. Another important thing to know about Audiomoths is that the time is programmed to be in UTCs. And so here at my location, I'm actually UTC -7. And so that's an important thing to remember when we are setting the clock, not when we're setting the clock, but when we're programming the Audiomoth. And so if it's connected to a computer like this one is, you can just select set time. And what this does is it sets our time to whatever the time on my clock is saying, but it sets it to the correct UTCs. And so right now it's 2:48 p.m. here on the West Coast, North America, which is actually much later in the day in terms of UTC. Okay, and so that's also used to be known as Greenwich Mean Time. And so here is our date, our time, it's all been updated correctly. So that's been done. So then the next thing you need to do is configure your Audiomoth. Okay, let's see, it's showing us a little error message. So we have to click OK. This is sometimes an issue that has come up. It says the clock is running too fast. So we're going to have to see if this actually matches up. And that's something I can talk about in another video with troubleshooting issues of Audiomoths. Often this fixes itself with a firmware update. Okay, so we're here. It looks like the clock is actually matching up okay. It's not running too fast. And so I'm going to go through a configuration. This is the configuration app, and there are some defaults in the configuration app that you need to make decisions about. First off is the sample rate. Right here on my configuration app, the default is 48K, which is a pretty standard for a lot of acoustic recordings. I'm going to keep mine at 48K because I sample birds. If you're sampling bats or animals that use ultrasound, you're going to need to pick a higher sampling rate. In general, um, application is that you pick generally pick a sampling rate that's about twice what the level of hearing that we know of for those organisms. So our upper bound of hearing, I can't hear 20 kilohertz, but very young people can sometimes hear that high in frequency. 48K is a more than a doubling of that. And so we're going to capture things that are within the range of human hearing. Okay, gain. So this is the sensitivity of the microphone. And again, you have to make decisions depending on what you're sampling. I'm often looking for rare things in my recordings, which are animals that are moving around, often not very common in the landscape. And so the probability of the animal actually being very close to any single microphone is not that high. So I tend to set my mic gain at high. What this does mean is if an animal's close to the microphone and it makes a noise, it could distort that sound. It could peak out the microphone, and you might not have a very good quality sound for that part of the recording. The next thing to think about is if you're going to enable some sleep and recording cycles, like if you want to get files that are a certain set amount of minutes long, then you're going to enable that. That's a default. And yes, so what we'll do here, you have to decide a duration. Do you want to have hour-long recordings? I don't tend to recommend it because programs like RVMon and other sort of formats, a file that large can sometimes crash some programs. So I tend to recommend 15 minutes max for a recording, but you can have the recorder turn off and on and record again for 15 minutes. Right now, I'm going to set my recorder to be sleeping for 5 seconds and then recording for 9 minutes and 55 seconds. You might choose to enable the LEDs. I recommend it. There may be some low inherent noise associated with the LEDs flashing, but they're very important in telling you if your Audiomoth is working or not. However, if you're looking to get really nice sound recordings with the minimum, microphone noise using these, you might consider disabling the LEDs. But I don't recommend it. And then I'm going to keep those defaults. Schedule. So this is where you pick your recording schedule. Because I'm sampling birds, I'm going to pick a recording schedule right now that covers sort of the dawn chorus. And there's in the newest configuration app for Audiomoth, there is actually now a new sunrise and sunset option. Before I do that, I want to make sure that my Audiomoth is using local time to do recording, because I get too confused if I try to set things correctly in UTCs. So now I can make decisions about recording time. And so I'm going to use this sunrise sunset mode, and I'm going to do the sun recording mode, and I can select just sunrise, or you can actually pick sunrise, just sunset, sunrise and sunset, sunset to sunrise, and sunrise to sunset. So for now, I'm going to pick sunrise. And then you can actually pick an interval that you want the recordings to start before or after sunrise. And I'm just going to go with the default. Filtering, I tend to go with none for filtering, but if you want to do a low pass filter or filter out noises above or below certain frequencies, you might choose that. And then I don't tend to use any of the advanced options. So now I'm going to configure the Audiomoth. And there, other than that sort of flash, like from sort of flat grayed out to solid colors, that's my only indicator that it has flashed. It does say each day this will produce 12 files, each 57 megabytes, totaling 685 megabytes. Daily energy consumption will be approximately 26 milliamp hours. And so that's useful to know when you're thinking about how long you can leave these things out in the field based on the size of your SD card and your battery power. And so after that, I simply eject the Audiomoth. And I wait to make sure that it's safe to eject it. And let's see if it looks like it's allowed me to eject. And now I can actually put this in its waterproof case. I have one of these standard Audiomoth waterproof cases. It's really important when you're doing this to line up that little microphone icon on the Audiomoth. Again, I see it right here. And I line that up with the hole in the recorder, the gasket, the opening for the microphone. And so there's a waterproof covering on that, and a small parabolic sort of structure here to help with the capture of the sound. Now it's closed shut and I can deploy it in the field.